The scent of motor oil and metal shavings still clung to my work uniform as I pulled into the driveway. 12 hours at the shop had left me drained. I just wanted to see my pride and joy, my 1967 Camaro SS. I'd spent a year and a half transforming her from a rusted wreck into something you could mistake for showroom perfection. I pressed the garage remote, and the door creaked upward to reveal chrome bright enough to blind and paint so rich it looked like you could dive into it. That's when my world flipped upside down. Somebody call 911, he's stealing my car. Brenda, my neighbor and self-appointed queen of Anna Drama Nest, stormed across her lawn like a rabid pit bull, phone already pressed to her ear. Yes, there's a black man taking my car right now. Sent everyone. Sirens were already echoing in the distance. She hadn't even bothered to speak to me first. I was standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, staring at my own car and apparently about to be arrested for stealing it. What would you do if your neighbor used the police as a weapon against you, right in front of your own home? My name's Marcus. I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and for 60 years we've kept cars alive in this town. After my divorce last spring, thanks to my ex suddenly deciding grease under my nails wasn't attractive, I scraped together what was left of my savings and bought a modest place in Willowbrook Estates. It's a middle-class Anna Drama Nest community where the lawns are flawless, the mailboxes all match, and, according to my real estate agent, everyone keeps to themselves. The Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis splurge. I found her at an estate sale, little more than a decaying hulk most people would have sent to the scrapyard for $30. But I could see the beauty waiting underneath. After spending $3,200 to make her mine, every weekend for a year and a half became a mission. A new 350 small block engine, rebuilt turbo 400 transmission, full suspension overhaul. The paint job alone took 4 months of sanding, priming, and wet sanding until the hugger orange gleamed like molten glass. I photographed every bolt and gasket for insurance, kept every receipt in a binder thicker than a phone book, and spent Saturdays surrounded by the smell of fresh primer while my coffee went cold on the workbench. Then there was Brenda Wilson, the human embodiment of a hoe fever dream. She moved in 5 years ago and immediately crowned herself ruler of everything. Real estate agent, white BMW detailed more often than most people shower, nails too manicured for real work, hair that defied physics, and a smile cold enough to freeze antifreeze. She'd been president of HO for 3 years, an opposite because nobody else wanted to run the neighborhood like a private dictatorship. Her specialty? Paperwork warfare. Leave your trash can out 12 minutes past pickup. Violation. Fence post measures 2 1/8 inches instead of 2 inches. Citation. Once, she even showed up with a ruler to accuse me of grass longer than the approved 2.5 inches. 2 weeks before the garage incident, she marched over while I was bleeding brake lines. Apparently, the sound of my impact wrench violated her delicate ears. Excuse me, but there's a noise ordinance and no power tools after 6 p.m. I stayed calm. Actually, the city allows hobby work until 9. I can show you the ordinance. Her smile frosted over. We'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity lowers property values. She said industrial activity like I was cooking meth instead of restoring American muscle. The day everything blew up began with her monthly backyard pool party. Saturday morning, the place was packed with neighborhood wives sipping mimosas and faking interest in each other's vacation photos. I could hear the high-pitched laughter through my garage walls until her voice sliced through it all. Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a classic car dealer in Phoenix, a 45 grand, but worth every penny. It's being shipped next week. My socket wrench hit the floor. She was showing them photos of a car identical to mine, acting like she'd invented the V8 engine herself. Later that day, I fired up my Camaro for a quick run to get brake fluid. The deep, throaty rumble of the 350 echoed off the houses like mechanical thunder. When I returned, Brenda was in her driveway, arms crossed, staring at my car like a hawk in a field mouse. That night, I'm guessing she sat up building her fantasy, convincing herself that somehow I had stolen her car. By morning, she had transformed into something much worse than an annoying neighbor, a Karen with a mission. So when two patrol cars came screaming into my driveway, lights blazing, I knew my quiet evening was over. 4 officers piled out like it was an armed robbery. Officer Rodriguez, a seasoned veteran with patient eyes, approached calmly. His partner, Morgan, a younger guy built like he could bench press the cruiser, stood ready with his notepad. "Evening, sir," Rodriguez said. "We received a report about a stolen vehicle at this address." The absurdity hit me like a brick to the chest. It felt like getting smacked in the forehead with a brick. "A stolen vehicle, officer? This is my car, in my garage, at my own house." "That's like accusing me of stealing my own fridge." Brenda appeared out of nowhere, clutching her phone so tight her knuckles were white. "That's him. That's the car thief. I just bought that exact Camaro yesterday. I have $45,000. I took a slow breath, the faint scent of exhaust still hanging in the air, trying not to laugh at the absurdity of my life. "Stay calm," I told myself. My dad's voice echoed in my head. "Documentation beats desperation every time." "Officers, I can prove ownership right now," I said, pulling up the photo album on my phone. I'd been obsessively cataloging the car's transformation for months, a rust-heaped bare chassis to a flawless hugger orange beauty. Rodriguez studied the pictures with genuine interest, his eyebrows rising as he swiped through shots of me installing the engine, sanding body panels, and stitching the upholstery. "That's some serious work," he said quietly. "You do this for a living?" "Family trade. My grandfather would have whacked me with a wrench if I'd done sloppy work." Meanwhile, Brenda was coming apart at the seams. "He's lying. Look at these." She shoved a handful of glossy prints at the Officersa dealer website, photos she'd probably downloaded 5 minutes before dialing 911. "I wired the money yesterday. They were supposed to ship it this week." Chan looked at the pictures with all the enthusiasm of someone reviewing a tax audit. No van numbers, no receipts, just generic images of any '67 orange Camaro. "Ma'am, do you have a bill of sale, bank transfer records, dealer contact info?" he asked. Her face flushed a deep fire engine red. "It's a broken bar, all being processed." Paperwork for classic cars takes time. While she scrambled for excuses, I dug into my workbench and pulled out the holy relic, a thick 3-ring blinder with every receipt, document, and progress photo from the rebuild. "Here's my DMV registration," I said, handing it to Rodriguez. "My name, my address, 18 months old, van match every number perfect. Here's my insurance policy," I added, flipping to photos Progressive had required for coverage. Chan jotted notes, glancing at Brenda as her story unraveled faster than a bargain bin sweater. I almost felt bad for her, almost. Then she tried one last swing. "He forged everything. He's probably running some kind of identity theft operation." That was my cue for the knockout punch. From the back of the binder, I pulled a worn sheet of yellow legal paper, the ink written in the shaky hand of a 93-year-old widow. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition, as is. Extensive rust damage. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Below was a signature worth framing, a Eleanor Hutchinson, along with the estate sale details from a year and a half ago. Rodriguez looked at it like it was a rare artifact. "This is the original bill of sale." "Yep." Eleanor was selling her late husband's project cars. "Nicest lady you'd ever meet. Made me promise I'd bring it back when it was done." The silence was so deep I could hear a sprinkler 3 houses away. Chen closed his notebook like a judge ending a trial. "Ma'am, this gentleman has a documented chain of ownership for over a year. Your evidence appears to be printouts from the internet." Rodriguez's tone shifted into the careful, firm voice police save for people on the edge of a public meltdown. "Ma'am, you should know filing a false police report is a misdemeanor in this state. People do get jail time for knowingly providing false information." Her face drained of color. "Yeah, broken bar. There must be some terrible misunderstanding. Car shopping stress. These things can get confusing." But her eyes were saying something else entirely. As the officers left, I caught her staring from her living room window, eyes sharp and calculating, like she was already planning her next move. This wasn't over. Monday morning arrived like a diesel truck backfiring in my ear. Still in yesterday's work clothes, I wandered to the mailbox, coffee in hand. Inside was a crisp envelope with all the charm of a coiled rattlesnake, Anadromous violation notice. Notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. Apparently, my work van, a standard Ford Transit with Rodriguez family auto neatly painted on the side, was now against community rules. The fine? $200. The notice gave me 48 hours to comply. Signed with Brenda's elegant little flourish, like she was sealing my fate. From my kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, eyes darting at my work van like it was parked on her grandmother's grave. Her jogging route had mysteriously expanded 17 passes by my house in a single morning. Yes, I counted. Most homeowners don't realize anadromous rules aren't just friendly suggestions from suburban hall monitors, they're actual legal contracts. My divorce lawyer once told me, everything leaves a paper trail, and paper trails don't lie. So, on my lunch break, I went to the county courthouse and dug through public records like an automotive archaeologist. What I found felt better than scratching a winning lottery ticket in my back pocket. I'd bought my van in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook passed their no commercial vehicles restriction in 2020. Vehicles owned before a new rule are automatically grandfathered in. Translation: Brenda could file complaints until she lost her voice, and it wouldn't matter. I drafted a response my dad would have framed, attached proof of my purchase date, and hand-delivered it to the anadromous management office. The receptionist read my rebuttal, her eyes widening as if she were watching a slow-motion car crash. "Oh dear," she murmured, "Mrs. Wilson is not going to like this." She wasn't wrong. By Wednesday, my mailbox was a Brenda-powered complaint dispenser. First, oil stains on the driveway. I power wash monthly religiously. Second, excessive automotive odors from the garage. Apparently, the scent of WD-40 and determination was offensive now. Third, noise violations during hours completely allowed by city ordinance. She was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping one would hit hard enough to cause damage. That's when I made the best investment of the entire feud: a full security system, 4 high-definition cameras, night vision sharp enough to catch a mosquito landing on my mailbox, all uploading to cloud storage. The footage revealed Brenda's new hobby property line reconnaissance. Every morning, she'd patrol our shared fence with her iPhone, snapping pictures and measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my grocery budget. She'd turned neighbor watching into a competitive sport. Thursday night brought her next move: the emergency board meeting. The notice arrived in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting, a barely legal timing, and clearly designed to prevent me from preparing a defense. I showed up expecting a kangaroo court and got something even worse: 3 middle-aged women at a conference table that looked like they were planning a bake sale. Brenda, her jittery lieutenant Clara, who seemed apologetic for even breathing, and Janet, whose main skill was nodding whenever Brenda spoke. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a seat across from them. Brenda's smile could have cured meat. "This will do just fine. We're implementing an emergency ban on automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations will carry a $500 fine." I opened my phone to the HOA bylaws, which I'd spent the afternoon memorizing. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is a tactical nuke. "Interesting idea," I said, "but Section 4.3 requires 7 days notice for any vote, and Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board members for an official decision." I looked around the room. "I count 3. That gives this meeting about as much legal weight as a neighborhood book club." Clara flushed pink. "This is a broken bar, just preliminary discussion," she stammered. "Then you'll want to review Section 2.9, I said, "which states that invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members." 3 hours of legal research and a pot of strong coffee had paid off. Brenda's smile cracked like shattered glass. "You think you are clever, don't you? Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities." Her voice dripped with venom strong enough to peel paint. "But my father taught me how to deal with bullies: stay calm, stick to facts, and let them tangle themselves in their own rope." "I think," I said evenly, "I'm a homeowner who actually reads contracts before signing them." Radical concept, I know. Later that evening, neighbor Tom wandered into my driveway looking equal parts apologetic and uncomfortable. Most of us think she's completely lost it, he admitted quietly. How about coffee tomorrow? I think it's time we had a talk. The next morning at 7:15, my doorbell chimed like it was auditioning for an alarm clock commercial. On my porch stood Dave Martinez from City Code Enforcement, clipboard in hand and wearing the weary expression of a man who's refereed too many neighborhood feuds. Sorry for the early visit, Mr. Rodriguez. We got an anonymous tip about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look? I led him into my garage, where the morning sun lit up my weekend sanctuary. The air smelled of metal polish and clean motor oil like expensive aftershave for gearheads. Every wrench, socket, and screwdriver had its own place on a pegboard so neat it would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. The moment Dave stepped inside, the tension drained from his shoulders. Wow, a broken bar cleaner than the shop where I take my truck, he said, running a finger along my workbench and finding not a speck of dust. What do you do for a living? Family mechanic business. This is just my hobby. Weekends only and no customers. He jotted a few notes, nodding at my engine hoist. Anonymous complaint said you were running an illegal shop, but I see zero evidence. Seeing no customer cars, no transactions. You're in the clear. As he climbed back into his city truck, he paused. Off the record, I've been out here 4 times this month. Same voice on every complaint. Different topics. This lady needs a hobby that doesn't involve my department. Brenda's next tactic arrived via certified mail, a formal complaint to my homeowner's insurance company. She'd gone straight to Progressive, claiming my garage was a fire hazard that endangered the entire block. The letter demanded an inspection or cancellation of my policy. When my insurance agent, Bill, showed up Tuesday afternoon, I was bracing for red tape. Instead, he spent the first 10 minutes staring into my Camaro's engine bay like it was the Sistine Chapel. Someone's definitely trying to mess with you, he said, signing his inspection report with a flourish. Your fire safety setup is better than most commercial garages. Half the places in this neighborhood are tinderboxes with propane tanks and extension cords tangled like Christmas lights. Progressive's response, a cease and desist letter to Brenda that basically translated to, file one more false claim and we'll see you in court. But our self-appointed neighborhood general had discovered a different weapon of the battlefield of modern suburban warfare: social media. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group popped up overnight like a digital rash. Brenda's debut post featured photos of my work van and garage, wrapped in the kind of sugar-coated phrasing that gives you cavities. Just trying to maintain our beautiful community standards, she wrote. Some activities may be more appropriate for industrial zones, don't you think? Tom showed me the screenshots over coffee, his face as red as a fire truck. 23 members in the first hour. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away. The comments section quickly turned into a gladiator arena. Some neighbors defended me, sharing their own Brenda nightmares. Others stayed quiet, weighing the social risk of crossing the HOA Empress. The whole thing imploded when she began deleting dissenting comments. Nothing sparks suburban rebellion faster than obvious censorship, and soon the group split into feuding factions, arguing about free speech, property values, and who exactly had lost their mind first. Then Sunday morning, the fight jumped from the internet to my driveway. I had 24 roofing nails scattered with precision, ready to shred unsuspecting tires. My security cameras caught the 2 a.m. culprit, a hooded figure with the stiff, fast stride of someone committing their first crime. Even in grainy footage, the gait looked familiar. Brenda always walked like she was late to an argument. Officer Morgan took my police report seriously, especially after I laid out the timeline of her harassment. Classic intimidation pattern, he said, photographing the nails. Document everything. These situations simmer for a while, then blow up into arrests fast. Later, combing through the camera footage, I found something else that made my coffee go cold. Brenda's morning exercise now included military-grade recon, measuring distances along the property line, photographing every angle, cataloging God knows what. This wasn't random harassment anymore, it was preparation. By Wednesday, the mail brought the ugliest move yet, an anonymous letter, printed on plain paper. Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave voluntarily or face escalating consequences. No signature, No return address, but the paper and printer marks were identical to her Andromanest notices. My divorce lawyer had taught me enough about document forensics to spot a match. Detective Martinez, now assigned to my case, examined it with a frown. Anonymous threats like this fall under hate crime statutes, state and federal. We're building a solid case against your neighbor. That night, Tom's little coffee group expanded to 6 households, each armed with their own Brenda horror stories. Mike, a lawyer, had been fined for using an unapproved mailbox font. Sarah, an accountant, got written up for planting flowers without committee approval. It's time for coordinated resistance, Tom declared, stirring his coffee like it was a revolutionary act. Complaints might vanish when filed alone, but a united front gets attention. As we swapped battle tales and mapped out legal angles, it hit me Brenda had accidentally built her own worst enemy, a neighborhood alliance stacked with valid grievances and people who actually knew how to fight back. The hunter was about to become the hunted. By Friday afternoon, I was in the dim basement of the county courthouse, a fluorescent-lit limbo that smelled of stale coffee and hopeless paperwork. The records clerk, who looked like she'd been working there since disco was cool, appointed me toward research room B with all the enthusiasm of someone giving directions to a public restroom. Andromanest financials are in corporate filings, she rasped, sliding a dusty box toward me. Good luck making sense of it. 3 hours later, I was buried in a hurricane of receipts and ledgers when I found out why Brenda guarded these papers like nuclear launch codes. Willowbrook's Andromanest financial statements read like a textbook on creative embezzlement. $15,000 to BNB Property Solutions for VIG Consulting Services. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping that never happened. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates for legal fees. Coincidentally, right when Brenda's divorce started, the punchline, all 3 companies had the same business address, 1247 Maplelania. Brenda's house. A quick check of the state's business registry confirmed my suspicions. BNB Property Solutions' sole proprietor Brenda Wilson was set up just months after she filed for divorce. Brenda's Best Gardens had officially dissolved last year without completing a single project. And Wilson and Associates? That was her ex-husband's law firm, which suddenly made her need for off-the-books cash a lot clearer. In 2 years, our elected president had siphoned roughly $78,000 from the neighborhood fund, turning it into her personal legal defense budget like some suburban Pablo Escobar. But the part that made my hands actually shake wasn't the theft, it was her hunting pattern. I cross-referenced complaint dates with recent home sales and uncovered her real hustle, targeting homeowners with relentless violations until they sold under market value, then flipping the deal to investor buddies through her real estate license. Double commission for her, plus kickbacks from buyers thrilled with the bargain. 3 families had already been run out in the past year. The Hendersons gave up $40,000 in equity after endless noise citations for their son's basketball hoop. The Petals surrendered after weekly violation letters about culturally inappropriate cooking odors. My own case was textbook. Brenda, a single homeowner, no close family in town, prime property valued at $380,000. I was her jackpot, and the Camaro incident was her fast-track excuse to start squeezing. Then came the real bombshell. Buried in a stack of foreclosure notices, I found something so perfectly ironic I laughed out loud in the dead silent research room. Brenda's own house was in default. She owed $23,000 in unpaid HOA to her own association, plus back taxes, attorney bills, credit card debt, a broken bar, the whole collapse. Her foreclosure hearing, 4 weeks away. Suddenly, everything made sense. The desperate stunts, the false reports, the manic need to push me out. She wasn't just drunk on power, she was a cornered animal, clawing for her last big payout before the bank took everything. I photocopied every damning page of $17 well spent for evidence of my neighbor's criminal empire. Walking back to my truck, the manila folder under my arm felt like a loaded weapon. I called Tom before I even turned the key. "Sit down," I told him. "You're gonna want to hear this." "You sitting down? Because what I found changes everything." I told Tom, this wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about going on the offensive. Brenda had no clue that the walls were already closing in. By Saturday morning, Tom's garage had transformed into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air was thick with the scent of coffee, motor oil, and the sweet aroma of justice in the making. Around a battered folding table that looked older than most of us, Tom had assembled what could only be described as the Avengers of neighborhood retaliation. There was Sarah Morgan, a forensic accountant with a sixth sense for sniffing out embezzlement; Mike Patterson, a semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of a good time was dismantling people in depositions; Linda Martinez, a high school teacher with organizational skills that could put NASA to shame; and Carlos Mendez, a contractor who knew every building code loophole within 3 counties. "Good grief," Sarah muttered, spreading Brenda's financial records across the table like she was examining evidence in a murder case. "Her embezzlement style is about as subtle as a brick through a plate glass window." Mike pushed his glasses up and scanned the papers with a predator's focus. 78 grand in fraudulent transactions. Harassment pattern fully documented. Prosecutors dream of cases this tidy. Meanwhile, Linda was already working her magic at building a color-coded timeline that tied harassment campaigns directly to sudden real estate sales. "It's all right here," she said with the precision of someone who had spent decades forcing teenagers to understand algebra. "Target a vulnerable family, keep escalating violations until they break. Then a surprisey an investor buyer swoops in." Carlos leaned back and let out a whistle that could call in dogs from blocks away. "And she's using Anadrama Nest funds to pay for her divorce lawyer. That's not clever Crimea, that's just dumb." 2 hours later, powered by caffeine and outrage, our plan took shape. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos would fortify the neighborhood with security cameras, motion detectors, night vision, and cloud storage. "If she so much as squints at your mailbox," he promised, "we'll have it in 4K courtroom quality." Incident Report Central. Linda would create standardized forms so precise they might as well be forensics manuals. Dates, times, witnesses, photos, police report numbers. "We're building a case so airtight it could survive a nuclear blast," she declared. Forensic firestorm. Sarah was already contacting professional allies to prepare an independent audit that would hold up in federal court. Operation Legal Annihilation. Mike explained Anadrama Nest corporate governance with the joy of a man discussing his favorite sport. "Every fake transaction, that's personal liability. She's not just stealing, she's burning down her own legal safety net." With board elections just weeks away, Tom, Sarah, and Mike would run for the 3 open seats, effectively taking over the association. Mike also lined up the first offensive move, filing a criminal complaint by Tuesday. Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. "She's looking at a felony buffet," he said, clearly enjoying the phrasing. Operation Public Humiliation. Linda took charge of the outreach campaign, flyers, social media, community alerts. The goal? Make Brenda's crimes unavoidable. Dinner table conversation. At $78,000 stolen from 40 households, each family had been overcharged nearly $2,000, more than enough to ignite a suburban rebellion. Carlos suggested a media hook guaranteed to grab attention. HOA president steals from neighbors while racially harassing them. Channel 7 wouldn't just cover it, they'd probably interrupt prime time. Our psychological warfare plan was simple. Let Brenda think she was winning while we tightened the legal cage. I'd keep up normal routines, pretend oblivious, and let her desperation generate more evidence. Classic rope-a-dope, Mike said. Let her punch herself out while we catch every swing. The timing was perfect. Brenda's foreclosure hearing was in 3 weeks. Audit results would be in 2. Board elections in 4. Multiple disasters would land on her doorstep in a perfect, catastrophic sequence. Sarah had already reached out to Janet Mills, Channel 7's investigative bulldog who'd won Emmys exposing suburban scandals. She's drooling for this story, Sarah said. Mike found the final nail for Brenda's career. Her real estate license was up for renewal in 6 weeks, and that renewal required a criminal background check. Fraud convictions meant a lifetime. No appeal revocation of her license, a total career wipeout. Mike delivered the line with the same warm satisfaction most people reserve for describing sunsets over the ocean. Financial collapse plus professional ruin equaled absolute annihilation. As our little war council broke up, Tom put a hand on my shoulder with genuine respect. 2 months ago, You were the quiet mechanic who kept to himself. Now you're leading a full-blown neighborhood uprising." I glanced around at the evidence wall, the detailed plans, and our carefully crafted timeline. The transformation from isolated target to resistance leader felt surreal, like waking up one morning to discover you could fly. "Sometimes bullies choose the wrong victim," I said. "Brenda's about to learn that lesson the hard way." The trap was set, baited, and locked. All we had to do was wait for our cornered predator to trip it herself. Monday morning delivered the sound I didn't even realize I'd been waiting for. Brenda's voice, sharp and panicked, echoing down the street like a smoke alarm in the middle of the night. At 7 a.m., she was pacing her driveway, phone glued to her ear, gesturing wildly at anyone unlucky enough to glance her way. "I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's going on and I need legal protection." From my kitchen window, I watched her try to rally her dwindling allies. Clara arrived first, looking like she'd rather be enduring a root canal. Janet followed soon after, her posture betraying just how much doubt had already crept in. By noon, every mailbox contained an emergency assessment notice of $500 per household, supposedly for legal defense against outside agitators trying to destabilize Andromenest leadership. The letter accused me of planning to sue the entire association and demanded immediate payment for attorneys. What Brenda didn't know was that Tom had attended her sad little 3-person emergency meeting from the parking lot, a digital recorder running the whole time. Later, he played it back. "They're looking into our finances," Brenda's voice crackled through the speaker. "I don't know how much they've found, but we need to control the narrative before this gets out of hand." Clara's tentative reply, "Brenda, maybe we should just a number. I've worked too hard to let them ruin everything. If I have to leave town, fine, but I'm not going down alone." The recording was crystal clear, courtroom ready. Mike's grin when he heard it could have powered the streetlights. By Wednesday night, desperation had pushed Brenda into truly stupid territory, vandalism with a side of self-sabotage. My security cameras caught her creeping around my property at exactly 2:47 a.m., dressed in black yoga pants and a hoodie like some suburban ninja who'd watched too much late-night cable. She carried a petty revenge kit, a tire-slashing knife, spray paint, and small bottles of motor oil she stashed behind my garage. Her aim was obvious: plant evidence of environmental violations. Unfortunately for her, she spent a full 15 minutes arranging the props while standing under my motion-activated floodlight, giving me pristine footage of her face, her BMW's license plate, and her sad little frame-up attempt. Thursday morning's code enforcement visit was her most spectacular flop yet. The inspector spotted the planted oil containers instantly, a price tags from Home Depot still attached. When he explained that fresh motor oil couldn't possibly create a violation, Brenda's story collapsed faster than a wet cardboard box. "Ma'am, filing false environmental reports is a federal offense," the inspector told her, barely concealing his annoyance. "This incident is being documented and forwarded to our fraud unit." By Thursday afternoon, Brenda's social media meltdown had begun, and by the weekend, it was an unmissable digital train wreck. On the Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, she unloaded a stream of unhinged posts about outside agitators and protecting property values. Her 2 a.m. Friday post was practically a signed confession. "Some people don't understand that communities have standards. When certain elements move in and start changing the character of established neighborhoods, decent people have to act to protect their investments." Screenshot, saved, forwarded to the legal team. Then came Saturday, the day she sealed her fate. Corliss was installing cameras at Linda's place when Brenda approached with the subtlety of a pushy car salesman on the last day of the month. "I know Marcus is paying you people to lie about me," she began. Brenda produced an envelope so thick it could choke a horse. $2,000 in cash, she said. "If you forget about those security cameras and stop helping with this harassment campaign." Carlos, true to his contractor's unshakable morals, kept tightening bolts while casually recording the entire exchange on his phone. "Ma'am, I'm just helping neighbors secure their homes," he replied. "Maybe you should be talking to a lawyer." "I don't need lawyers. I need this neighborhood back under control." Her voice spiked higher than a smoke alarm. That man has turned everyone against me with his lies and manipulation. The desperation was so thick you could have spread it on toast. She was unraveling in real time, every frantic move adding more evidence to her already towering prosecution file. By Sunday evening, she dropped the nuclear option. Another false police reported, this one claiming I'd threatened her with a weapon during a driveway confrontation that never happened. When the responding officers arrived, they found me in the garage, covered in grease, working on a neighbor's transmission with 3 witnesses nearby. Officer Morgan had officially reached his limit. "Ma'am, this is your 4th false report in 2 weeks. You're looking at charges." On Monday, Sarah sent the preliminary audit results through an encrypted email. They were worse than we'd imagined. Brenda hadn't stolen just $78,000. She'd been quietly overcharging every household for fake services and pocketing the difference. Total theft. About $96,000 over 2.5 years. She wasn't just broke and desperate, she was a seasoned thief who'd finally run out of marks. The endgame was arriving faster than we dared hope, and Brenda was accelerating her own downfall. Then came Tuesday night's breaking, a criminal disaster worthy of the Three Stooges. At 2:33 a.m., while sane people were dreaming about beach vacations or lottery wins, Brenda was breaking into the Anadrama Nest management office. The security footage could have been a rejected comedy sketch. Brenda, our self-appointed suburban Napoleon, using a stolen master key with all the grace of a tap-dancing rhinoceros. She stuffed documents into the industrial shredder like she was making designer confetti. The silent alarm went off before she could even warm up, and Officer Rodriguez arrived to find her elbow-deep in shredded evidence, surrounded by what looked like a paper blizzard. "Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them," he ordered, probably wondering how his shift had turned into a live episode of Criminal Fails. Her reply was straight out of a soap opera. "You don't understand, they're destroying everything I built." This community was perfect before they came. The office reeked of overheated electronics and flop sweat as she was cuffed and read her rights. Watching the footage later, I almost felt sorry for her, a broken bar amista, until I remembered the fake police reports and tire-slashing stunts. Bail was set at $25,000, which for Brenda might as well have been $25 million. Her finances looked like the Titanic post-iceberg. She spent 3 days in county lockup, probably the first time in her life without a manager to complain to. While she was enjoying government hospitality, Clara made the move that sealed Brenda's fate. She visited the jail with a hidden recorder in her purse. "I need your help, Clara." Brenda's voice cracked over the phone when Clara played it for the rest of us. You could almost taste the desperation. "There's money in my garage behind the water heater. Cash. We can disappear before this gets worse." Clara's voice was shaky. "Brenda, I can't. 50,000. Help me, and we start over somewhere. No one will know us." Mike let out a low whistle when he heard the recording. Admissions of theft, conspiracy, intent to flee, obstruction of justice. I see a broken bar. She's confessing to everything from inside jail. It's like she's auditioning for the record books and criminal stupidity. The emergency neighborhood meeting packed the community center to bursting. The air buzzed with outrage and the unmistakable scent of coffee so bitter it could dissolve rust. 43 households turned out, and the combined anger could have lit up Las Vegas for a week. Tom took the floor, presenting Sarah's final audit like a man laying down a winning poker hand. The numbers hit like a sledgehammer. Brenda hadn't just skimmed $78,000. She had run a full-fledged criminal operation involving fake vendor payments, padded contracts, and kickback deals totaling $112,000 over 3 years. "Every single family here has been systematically robbed," Tom declared, prompting a wave of gasps and creative swearing that would have made a sailor blush. Average loss per household, $2,800. The vote of no confidence was unanimous except for Janet, who abstained while wearing the expression of someone wishing they could dig a tunnel to Canada. 33 households demanded Brenda's immediate removal, criminal prosecution, in repayment with interest. Friday morning brought the media frenzy Brenda had always craved, though not in the role she'd imagined. Channel 7's van rolled up before sunrise, soon joined by competing news crews eager to feast on the suburban scandal. Reporter Janet Mills interviewed neighbors like she'd stumbled onto her ticket to an Emmy. That night, the top headline blared: Anna Drama Nest president arrested in massive embezzlement scandal, complete with Brenda's mugshot and security footage of her frantic shredding session. My interview required every ounce of diplomacy my divorce had taught me. This isn't about revenge, I told the camera, carefully choosing my words. It's about holding people accountable when they abuse positions of trust. The story spread across social media like wildfire, trending nationally within hours. Thousands of people chimed in with their own horror stories and cheered our David versus Goliath victory. Brenda's real estate career crumbled overnight. Her brokerage suspended her license. Past clients began lodging complaints, and her reputation became more toxic than a chemical spill. The foreclosure sale of her home went off without incident to $280,000, a solid $70,000 under market value. Apparently, nothing kills buyer enthusiasm like news vans and active criminal investigations. Then came her 3 a.m. Facebook confession video, a mascara-streaked sobfest blaming everyone but herself. "I was just trying to protect our community," she sniffled. "Sometimes good people have to make hard choices." The comment section turned into a firing squad of long-suppressed grievances. The video vanished within hours, but screenshots are forever. Our neighborhood tyrant's reign was done. Sentencing day dawned crisp and clear, a perfect backdrop for the finale of the most satisfying reality show I'd ever lived through. The courthouse parking lot looked like a neighborhood block party, with over 40 residents carpooling in for the big event. Inside Judge Patricia Hernandez's courtroom, every bench was packed with familiar faces of people who had become allies over 3 long months. The air was thick with nervous energy and stale courthouse coffee. Brenda sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed spectacularly with her overprocessed blonde hair. She looked like a deflated parade balloon next to her overworked public defender. The once feared clipboard queen now resembled a scarecrow that had survived a tornado. Channel 7's cameras had prime positioning, and Janet Mills had front row seats for what she dubbed the most satisfying Anna Drama Nest story of the decade. When the judge called for victim impact statements, I rose first, my heart pounding like it wanted to break free. 3 months ago, I was just a quiet mechanic who kept to himself. I began, my voice steadier than expected. This case started when a woman called 911 because I opened my own garage door. But it was never about a Kara, it was about power, control, and what happens when someone decides they can terrorize their neighbors without consequence. I recounted the harassment, false police reports, and thefts. But more than the money, I spoke about fear, how Brenda had used authority to make people unsafe in their own homes. "She didn't just steal our money," I said, locking eyes on her, though she refused to look back. "She stole our peace of mind, our sense of community, our belief that neighbors look out for each other instead of preying on them." Tom spoke next with the steady weight of a postal worker who's seen it all. Sarah broke down the financial evidence with surgical precision. Linda described how standing up to corruption had become a lesson for their children. When Brenda's turn came, her attorney launched into a melodrama about mental health struggles, divorce trauma, and financial stress. Anything but accountability. "My client deeply regrets her actions," the lawyer pled. "She's willing to repay what she took and seek counseling." Finally, Brenda stood, and what came out of her mouth was pure, unfiltered audacity. Brenda's voice trembled, dripping with crocodile tears. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed, blotting at her eyes with tissues that were working harder than a NASCAR pit crew. "This community meant everything to me. I was only trying to keep up our standards and protect property values." People don't always understand that leadership sometimes means making hard choices. The collective eye roll from the courtroom was practically seismic. Even her own lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear under the defense table. Judge Hernandez had clearly heard enough for one career. "Miss Wilson," she began, her voice cool and deliberate, "in 3 decades on this bench, I have rarely seen such a calculated abuse of fiduciary responsibility, paired with racial harassment and criminal intimidation." She studied Brenda with the detached curiosity of someone examining a particularly unpleasant insect. "You were entrusted by your neighbors to serve this community, and you exploited that trust to steal from them. You targeted a minority homeowner with false police reports, actions that could have ended in tragedy. You destroyed evidence, attempted to flee the jurisdiction, and even now you refuse to accept responsibility for your actions." Her next words landed like a hammer. "This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, full restitution of $112,000 plus court costs, and 5 years of supervised probation after your release." The gavel came down like thunder. The room erupted in applause, a deeper, more resonant sound than any ordinary clapping, the sound of 40 households finally seeing justice. As Brenda was led away in shackles, she turned to look at our section of the courtroom. There was no regret in her eyes, no apology, only cold, concentrated hatred toward the people who had dared to hold her accountable. On the courthouse steps, with cameras flashing and neighbors celebrating, a reporter shoved a microphone toward me. "Mr. Rodriguez, what would you tell other homeowners facing HOA abuse?" I thought about the fear, the endless documentation, the months of organizing and preparation. Document everything, build community. "Truth wins," I said, feeling the weight of our struggle condensed into 6 words. That line spread online within hours, becoming a rallying cry for anti-Dromanest reform efforts across the country. But standing there in the sunshine, surrounded by neighbors who had become family, I realized something important: that we hadn't just stopped a bully, we'd proven what ordinary people can achieve when they stand together. 6 months later, Willowbrook Estates had transformed from a tense suburban police state into something that actually felt like a community. The smell of weekend barbecues replaced the sour tension that used to hang over the streets. Children played in front yards without fear. Our new anti-Dromanest board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, and Mike handling legal matters, introduced radical new concepts like transparency and common sense. Monthly financial reports were posted online. Meetings were announced in advance. Violation notices came with photo evidence and reasonable deadlines. The once forbidden patch of land behind the clubhouse had become a thriving community garden, thanks to Linda's meticulous scheduling. Neighbors who barely spoke before were now swapping tomato seedlings and zucchini recipes. Ironically, property values had risen by 15% since Brenda's removal. Turns out, buyers preferred neighborhoods known for defeating corruption over ones in the headlines for harassment and embezzlement. Restitution checks arrived steadily over the course of a year. Every household received what was stolen from Thema plus interest. Watching neighbors pay off credit cards and plan long postponed vacations felt like justice you could touch. Brenda's new reality was a far cry from her former lifestyle. According to Clara, who kept in contact out of equal parts guilt and morbid curiosity, our Xan neighborhood Napoleon now worked prison laundry for 60 cents an hour and shared a cell with someone convicted of armed robbery. A group of film students from State University turned our saga into a documentary titled Garage Door Justice, an American Story. It won the Regional Film Festival and was picked up for national release. I donated all my appearance fees to launch the Willowbrook Automotive Education Scholarship, funded entirely by Brenda's ongoing restitution. It was poetic justice with a mechanical twist. 3 students had already used it to start automotive programs at technical colleges. Seeing Linda's nephew graduate from community college with an associate degree in automotive technology meant more to me than any car show trophy I'd ever taken home. My personal life had taken turns I never could have predicted. Sarah and I had been dating for 4 careful months, moving slowly, building something solid. We connected over the shared experience of taking on bullies and discovering that mechanics and forensic accountants actually had more in common than either of us would have guessed. The Camaro that had accidentally sparked this entire chain of events had become something of a legend in classic car circles. It had been featured in magazines as the car that took down an anti-Dromanest tyrant. I'd been offered big money for it. But some things aren't for sale, especially not a car that had unintentionally become a symbol for resisting suburban oppression and standing up to discrimination. Sunday drives to car shows were still part of my routine, but now I invited neighborhood kids who wanted to learn about engines, restoration, and the joy of fixing something with your own 2 hands. Teaching Carlos Jr. to set valve clearances while his dad watched with pride was worth more than all the money Brenda had stolen combined. Our legal victory had ripple effects far beyond Willowbrook. Courts in 3 states were now citing our case in Andromeda fraud prosecutions. Mike had been invited to speak at legal conferences about fiduciary duty violations, and our documentation process was now being taught in community organizing workshops across the country. The state legislature even passed the Willowbrook Act, requiring annual financial audits for all Andromedas with budgets over $50,000. The bill's signing came with photos alongside the governor, but the real win was knowing other communities wouldn't have to go through the nightmare we had endured. Just last month, I received an email from a veteran in Phoenix who was being harassed by his Andromedas president. He told me our story had inspired him to fight back. I'd started helping other neighborhoods for free, sharing documentation tips, strategy advice, and the coalition building methods that had worked for us. Now, our neighborhood held monthly block parties where everyone pitched in food, swapped stories, and built the kind of real friendships that Brenda's rain had crushed. Kids from different families played together while adults swapped barbecue recipes and home repair tips. This was what suburbia was meant to be. As I write this, I can hear Tom's lawnmower humming and smell Linda's latest baking project drifting through my garage window. The soundtrack of a healthy community, people working, laughing, and choosing to lift each other up instead of tearing one another down. If you've lived through your own Andromedas nightmare, share it in the comments. Your persistence and documentation might be exactly what inspires someone else to stand up to their neighborhood tyrant. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more stories proving that justice still works when regular people refuse to back down. Next week on Andromedas, Karen tries to steal a military veteran's service dog and learns the hard way about federal crimes. From all of us here at Andromedas, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed seeing neighbors stand their ground and karma land squarely where it belongs, hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next piece of drama we bring your way.